I know Marquita just said welcome to everybody, but absolutely welcome, especially to the family who is here. My family's here, my partner, and my friends, extra friends. I mean, this is really special to have you all here, and my cohort, of course. So I am Bridgett Winters. Today, I would like to discuss the healing power of groups.
Yeah!
And we're going to explore why it's so healing, how that developed evolutionarily and historically, and we're going to talk about what we have going on in our culture right now, and what opportunities we have as clinicians to bring more groups to the world. So, and this graphic will come back, but I don't know if you noticed here, we've got a group of people. Just wanted you to notice these mirrors. And group as a mirror is the title, Inviting Therapeutic Value to Social Spaces. So this will be back. So get ready. In this moment, I'm going to invite us all into this space together, really, with our eyes open. Okay, so if you want to be comfortable, make sure you're comfortable, find a good posture. Feet on the floor is really nice for grounding. We're going to kind of really come into some awareness here of the space that we're in. I want to invite you to let your eyes move all around. Just map the room, map the walls and the people, where everybody is kind of in the room. See what you can notice. And let's take a deep breath together. That felt so good. Notice how you feel in this room right now. And now we're going to go just for a moment. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Sort of don't have to. Just for a second, kind of be inside of your body for a moment. Go inward, notice your breath. Notice the awareness of your feet on the ground, maybe your butt in the chair, the effect of gravity doing its thing, planting us. And we're on this beautiful land. We acknowledge the land that we're on. And we have that land acknowledge us back. Have it support you in this moment. The ground has got us. Now I'm going to ask you while you're in this space to feel into some identities that might be true for you. These could be really simple, like, I feel hungry right now. I feel hot right now. You know, I feel comfortable right now, maybe uncomfortable. Maybe you're a parent. Maybe you're a baby. And anything else that really just, you know, is true about you, and you know you're part of that in this world. So that could be like a sibling. I know I'm a sibling and a daughter. I'm a student right now for today. All right, so slowly we're gonna, while we're in this space, in this internal space, take a moment and just notice remember your vision of the room, and like maybe get a bird's eye view map in your head of this room, just from what you remember. and all the people in it. And zoom out and see us connected to this larger campus and this larger city, nestled by the mountains. And in your next breath, I'm going to invite you to open your eyes slowly and acknowledge, if you feel comfortable, acknowledge some folks around you, just with eye contact. Some people might have similar identities as you. Maybe the person next to you is also hungry. Maybe the person next to you is also a baby. So let's invite appreciation for that we have some things in common probably. Wondering if anybody feels called to share how they're feeling right in this moment. Just a quick tidbit.
Grounded.
Squishy. Excited.
All right, so now we're going to transition into level 2. Okay? So, I'd like you to raise your hand if you currently live in the United States. Okay, everybody look around. Notice we got pretty much all the hands up, I guess. Mostly. Yeah. All right. If you're about to graduate, raise your hand. Acknowledge your group. Acknowledge who's in the group. That's a group. Wondering, now we've split a little bit. We got some folks who are not graduating tomorrow in this room. But we've split. Wondering, anybody who didn't raise their hand on that one, how are you feeling right now?
Happy for them.
Awesome.
Less stress.
Oh, let's do a couple more, okay? Who's a coffee drinker? I know that's usually a big group, yeah. Few people with their hands down, including me. Awesome. Who is left-handed? Yeah. A group that often doesn't get called out. Okay, and now the big one. Okay, raise your hand if you're a cat person. I see, all right, I know. Okay, raise your hand if you're a dog person. Okay, all right. I get it, some people put their hands up for both, and that's totally great, because I'm in that category. But what is it, after you raised your hand, I don't know if you noticed, was there somebody next to you who identified as the opposite animal of you? Yeah. How does that feel? Mary, I'm seeing your face. I don't know if you have anything to share.
I just love all animals, so how could you not like them all?
This is a tough example for this group.
You call them the vegan.
In love with it, yeah, alive. Well, anyway, so what I'm trying to accomplish with this exercise is the concept of in-groups, and particularly perceived in-groups. So they're coming and going constantly. Our identities kind of change. We have the freedom to do that over our lifetime, I can be a cat person today and a dog person tomorrow and not like animals the next day. It's beautiful. And it's great, but it also divides us. So these are really light examples of things that divide us, and we all are very aware that there are much stronger things that divide us, that have deeper meaning for each of us, that we have probably fought for in our lives or felt a lot more about. So there's this whole theory behind this called social identity theory, and perceived in-group creates allyship. It creates an undercurrent of allyship, right? When you raise your hand, you say you're a dog person. When you see the other dog people, you're like, yeah, we love dogs. Like, yeah, dogs are so awesome. And it's appropriate in that moment to understand how, it's a way for you to understand yourself. when I'm asking that question, you're all engaging with the answer to that question. And actually, like, the stronger your historical, the stronger the historical meaning for you, the stronger that identity shows up. So in that kind of example, we talk maybe like religion, or longer term things that have historical meaning are more salient identities. So this serves as a basis for perceiving, thinking, and acting in the world. It gives us a sense from coming from the same place. And if someone were to threaten us, we'd feel inclined to support members of our in-group first. So let's think about our group again as a whole. We're in this room. If someone came screaming down the hall, which I was going to stage that, but I didn't do it, and they came in and would start yelling or something, I think, would you feel like, okay, we need to handle this situation so we can continue on with the presentation? At least I would feel that way, but I think a lot of people would too. And I mean, at Naropa, we know we're all one. So I'm preaching to the choir on this one in a lot of ways, but there's this really fun study that happened I gotta tell you about. They did a study where they got a sports team, we're just gonna call them Sports Team A, and they called them in, and they were fans of the sports team. They asked them questions about their engagement with the sports team, and then on the way out, they staged someone tripping on the sidewalk in front of these people. And they did the experiment when the person was tripping who had the same jersey of the sports team they loved. And 92% of people offered help. Okay? Did it again, opposite sports team, rival sports team, only 30% of people offered help. Part 2 of this experiment, which this is so cool, get ready. They did it again. They called in fans from Sports Team A, but they asked them questions about loving football. So they focused on an identity that wasn't all about their sports team, just football fans. So they came out of there thinking, I'm a football fan. And so then, in that case, when they had the rival fall again, 70% helped. Yeah. Okay. All right. So as you can imagine, this splitting that's happening creates fracture in our society. And this graphic kind of illustrates, so this is from 2023. 50 million Americans are experiencing mental illness this year. 28.2% are not getting the treatment that they need for various reasons. Not enough therapists. We're working on that as a cohort. Not enough access, particularly for marginalized populations. They often are not able to access care until it's worse. So that's not great. And a lot of stigma, still leftover stigma from in years past when therapy was, and currently, considered just, there was a stigma. Oh, there is a stigma that therapy is you're weak or something. So we as a cohort are inheriting this problem. 14 million people right now, today, have a need for mental health care and are not getting it. Okay. We all knew this when we started in 2020. We knew the pandemic was going to make it worse. We were right. The thing is, we have a great tool that is not being utilized as much as it could be, and that's in groups. So there's just overwhelming evidence. Groups are amazing. We'll just start with that. The emotional power of them, I'm going to go through this really quickly. So perceived social support, you're perceived, you can have the resources to handle your stuff if you need. It helps you understand yourself, not just as an individual, but as a part of a larger collective. It supports our capacity to tackle and overcome adversity and informs our sense of self. The World Happiness Report, it's a really cool thing that I look at all the time. They've been doing it now for about 10 years. And they have surveyed millions of people over these 10 years in the world. They've determined the 6 key factors to happiness. I'll tell you what they are. Absence of corruption, freedom, income. Yeah, those are in there. The last 3, generosity, physical and mental health, human relationships, and social support. So more than 50% at least, are related to group dynamics, connective dynamics that determine happiness. Not to mention, there's a 3 times improvement, that people are 3 times more likely to improve their depression when in a group compared with people who are not getting treatment. So it's excellent for that. The physical healing power group is super cool. Reduces blood pressure reactivity, increases your immune function, supports recovery from chronic illness and addiction. And then the longer life expectancy thing someone else had presented, I think it was Clay, was talking about it, is just incredible. Across 148 studies. And actually, I think Ellie talked about this too. The stronger social relationships are associated with longer life expectancy, and it's on par with quitting smoking. Like, if you're socially connected, it's even more important than exercise. And I think that was Ellie's was saying it. Yeah. We'll look at that a little bit deeper in a minute. Groups are tricky too. They're not always 100% healing and awesome. Conflict happens. Conflict actually contributes to 80% in mood variance. So conflict's tough, and which makes sense why we try to avoid it. But our wonderful Marie is going to tell us next about why rupture and repair is actually an amazing way to deepen relationship. And I will leave it to Marie to tell you more about that. But the basic idea is we don't know how to do conflict well as a society. We're working on it, but we just don't have the skills. We try to avoid it. People try to shut us down and fix it. So where does this come from? Polyvagal theory. I chose the cutest little lion to represent the West. So not very threatening, but you know. So let's talk about what happens in our nervous system in response to our environment. So all this group stuff comes back to what feels safe. And mammals respond to cues of safety. That's why I started this whole thing by bringing us together in a room together, safety, and then broke us apart, because we want to regulate first before we get into anything riskier or deeper. And polyvagal theory is just how evolution contributed to how our nervous system responds to threats in our environment. So let's be honest, being in a group is threatening. There's other things, we don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of opportunities for random things to happen. So when you're in threat, all your good healing turns off, which is not great because we're going for safety. Healing happens when you're feeling safety. And when mammals feel safe, they turn off their threat reactions, they can start trusting, they can start building that capacity to heal. And healing happens in relationship. So back in the day, humanity's origins, we started gathering around the fire, kind of formed a social focus. It's how language developed. Language then turned into myth, and myths, I think someone else was talking about myths yesterday or one of the days. And in the book Sapiens, they talk about how a lot of, initially tribes needed to have a way, neighboring tribes need to have a way to come together. And so through shared myth, like religion, not here to argue about religion being myth or not, but through shared myth, people can come together. And when you come together, bigger groups can accomplish more things. So pretty cool stuff that it comes from all that. And we've learned how to cooperate. We're the only species that really can do that really well. Except here in the US, we don't as much. Or we did, and we're moving away from that. And we're talking about individualistic culture, cancel culture stuff, political division, an increase in black and white thinking, which I know I asked you all to do kind of earlier, but it was a demonstration. And like just the creation of other, right? And we're losing our community spaces in a lot of ways. Clay's graphic yesterday was talking about how like organized religion numbers are down for people who say they associate with churches and stuff. And it's, yeah, the social culture that's centered around alcohol, I'm really not a fan of that. That has not been my scene. I mean, there's people in this room that know that I drink sometimes, not right now, but sometimes. And I'll just announce, I don't drink at this altitude anymore. It's not possible for me. But these places are just like, usually kind of chaotic. I mean, it can totally be, props to the people who want to party and get rowdy and all that. But where are the awesome connective spaces that offer me a place to go that doesn't have toxin, that I don't have to feel like I have to intoxicate myself to feel connected to other people? So I wanted to show you this cool graphic. So this is the mortality factors of so this is the actual importance, this green, it's the actual importance of what counts for mortality. And then the red is what people think it counts as. So like social support and social integration, people don't really value it. They don't think that it's really that helpful. They think quitting smoking, that's gonna make you live forever. And yeah, I mean, it's third. But yeah, and all those other ones. So it's pretty interesting how off our perceptions are of this stuff. And the sad thing is that only 5% of private practice resources go into group therapy as opposed to 95% that goes into individual therapy. Okay, so despite the outcomes being identical to individual therapy. Yeah. So what group offers? Groups are really great because you can heal in relationship. Many people have a really impoverished history of being in groups that have been healthy. So it's not on everybody's mind that this would be a good thing to do. Group therapy emphasizes feedback with one another, and it leads to corrective interpersonal experiences. Profound healing power results from talking openly and being open to feedback from others in a group. So we all learned to start a group class about the therapeutic factors of what work, why groups work, and why they're awesome. I kind of did my own little breakdown here of like the first stage of the group, the forming, the storming, and then the norming and performing, if you ever heard that. So like at the beginning, generally, people are feeling just like they belong, because a lot of people are sharing things that other people share as well in the group. In the middle, they're starting to self-disclose and share big things and have a catharsis potentially. And toward the end, they're feeling maybe a sense of cohesiveness and a self-understanding. And and the ones that are bold are the ones that the participants think are the most valuable. But these are just all of the ones that the science thinks is most valuable. Okay, so we're back to this graphic. Fundamentally, others are what is important for understanding ourselves. So every person in the group sees repressed parts of themselves through reflections in the other group members. As Lynn said, our first experience of life is a relationship. I wrote that down and added it in too. I thought that was so good. Mirroring is particularly important in group therapy. So Folks, that British pioneer group guy, it's written really well on here. I'm just trying to go quicker. British pioneer, SH folks, likened groups to a hall of mirrors. In group therapy, members constantly reflect their responses to each other. A person sees themselves, or part of themselves, or not themselves at all, reflected in the group. And by seeing that, they see them reflected in a way that they are themselves, or that they're not. And so effectively, they get to know themselves in the group by seeing it or not seeing it in other people. Another aspect of social identity theory is that we're motivated to define the self positively. So the self in this situation is more of like the group, which is, I think, a mechanism of like why we want the group. We want to protect the group because that becomes us. We are the group. So yeah, her picture is in all these, we're seeing different parts of her in all of the other members of this group in that graphic. And so, all this said, what can we do? We can build groups, right? So, AGPA, which is the American Group Psychotherapy Association, is making a call for all clinicians in private practice to just build one group. If we do, we could meet 10% of the unmet need for therapy. And that would be about 3.5 million people. But what about the other 10.5 million, if you were doing the math? Let's meet them where they are. Okay? So I'm telling you this today because I particularly have an idea of how to bridge social spaces that are accessible right now, like these bars and restaurants and whatever, bridging the gap between what's hanging out and social and fun and what is therapeutic. And I think that we can, like groups right now, feel like they're locked in a cabinet high above the fridge that you can't reach or something. Like, oh, I have to find a group. How do I find a group? Oh, like you're Googling it and there's sometimes not a lot of resources out there. And so I wanted to bring in third places as just a third place. If you haven't heard about them, they are like, it's not home, it's not work, but it's a third place that you go to be. Just be yourself, socialize, whatever it is. So I want to recommend that you focus a lot on setting up a really amazing nervous system friendly space. And there's lots of ways to do that I don't have time to get into. But talk to me later. I totally will tell you what I found so far. I think the hardest thing is, what kind of group do I start? I think you just pick a topic. Just pick any identity that you want to work with or that you feel passionate about. It could be anything. Miranda and I started a group about parental rupture. My parents are sitting right next to you, by the way. My mom and dad. I was like, can I lead this group? And I did it anyway. We did it. And it was amazing. So I would recommend integrating mindfulness as well, just because that present moment awareness is so valuable for helping people to see themselves in that mirrored way. And and so building the container, starting with everybody work on their identities that are the same and slowly work toward identities that are different, invite curiosity and humility toward those differences, because differences are great. We don't all want to be the same. And through this model, it helps heal us across our divides. I think group therapy could be, whatever we want to call this, whatever this is gonna be, I'm calling it afterspace. So talk to me if you want to hear more about that, because I'm out of time. And references.
a second to honor Bridgett. Just because we're supposed to look for the helpers. And everyone in our cohort knows Bridgett has helped us and given up her time for every technical mishap. Don't know how to get this out of this computer. Don't know how to get this up there to talk to you. So change comes in waves. This is for you, from all of us. Thank you for saving our app. Thank you, Bridgett. Thank you. We love